Okay, let's see if Candy can shed some more light on this week's episode with her Speak on It. So Candy says she was annoyed with herself for letting herself get that angry with a peasant like Marlo Amos and her warrant ankle. And the edit was trying to give Marlo some grace and a leg to stand on some old crap. Oh, apparently Ralph mentioned that he had some type of surgery but didn't mention what kind of surgery it was, and Candy wants to know more. I don't care if Ralph got a vasectomy or not, because from the streets of New York all the way out to Vegas, it doesn't matter if you're rich or Bravo famous, because he ain't getting someone pregnant in the anus in Tampa. Candy said, was it a vasectomy or a penis lengthening surgery? Shade. She called Drew right then and there and asked her. See, this is why I like it when Candy is on Speak On It, not DJ A1, because Candy has the tea. Oh, Jesus, Drew is hemming and hawing, so she admits to the vasectomy, but Candy's like, and? She gonna say, ask Ralph. Girl, spill the tea, it was on the show. Like, we got time for you. Give a little plot line and take it right back. But then she shows her the picture of Sheree's new face work, and Drew says, that looks like me. Oh, Drew's got a gig on the Chitlin circuit. Her lies and his secrets. Wait a minute, is that about your marriage? Because we know Ralph has a lot of secrets. Floridian secrets. And you lie that you're in a good marriage, so it could be about y'all. Maybe it's a biopic. Or rather, a bioplay. Wait a minute. The way Drew was talking, she wasn't talking about Ralph like they was actually getting a divorce. I'm telling you, they playing with their marriage for a plot line. But now we get to the beef with Marlo, and she said, look, the heifer been dragging it and you see it too, and for her to act like I did something so horrible when her nephew passed when you saw I was there. And originally when Marlo told her about her nephew's passing, she didn't mention anything about the other person having any connection with OLG. Oh, her production assistant said, it's not your fault Bravo's dragging this out and we ain't gonna hash this out every week. Because we are having the same conversation, but we know Bravo loves a dead horse. And she thinks it's very dumb for Marlo to have a problem with her promoting her businesses. I mean, what is she supposed to do, go on and cry about her mama not liking her husband? Or evade how she makes her money like you do? Because we know all of Candy's exes. Yours are still John Doe's. Or really just John's. She said, I ain't seen your archive, heifer. If you had a legit business, maybe you'd be more worried about that than attaching your family tragedy to my business. Candy said, all I've seen out of you is 2 fake boyfriends. Oh yeah, what happened to that house you were building? Your Chateau Sheree. It was real when she put them kids out, though. That was real. And Candy said, I would have tried to help you expunge your record if you had asked. I would have looked into it for you. Well, Candy, since you're so helpful, why don't you help me out and come on the show? Join me and Chris for an episode of Pop Roast. We always giving you full free press and promo. Candy said it's okay for Drew to call Marlo aggressive because Marlo's almost 6 feet tall, standing over her yelling like that. And we know she'll cut a bitch, so Candy getting Marlo together. So because they were trying to tie the cousin's assaulter to Candy, Candy had Don Juan look up all the employee records, and that's when they found out, oh, they just maybe met at the restaurant, but he'd have nothing to do with OLG. So because Marlo was being funky, that's why she didn't want to talk about her shooting, the incident at her restaurant with Marlo. She would have talked about it with anybody else, she just didn't want to talk about it around Mr. Amos. And Candy said, for years, I caped for you and never brought up your past, but since you want to act the ass, I'll pull it out on Mad Day. Ooh, and they said last year when you was putting them boys out your house and you was crying at the spa, you wouldn't worry about your nephew then, but now it's an issue. And Courtney trying to portray Candy as a hood rat. Candy is a staple in Black culture. She is a part of the culture in many different ways, from performances to writing. She is a success. She is someone to look up to. She consistently gives back to her community and has businesses in her community. What's wrong with ghetto? What's wrong with living in a project? I know wonderful people that have lived in projects. I lived in Harlem. I lived in the hood, the ghetto. I had a great time there. There are parts of it I really miss. She says, I normally don't like to represent black women like that on television, and I wish I hadn't fallen for the okie doke because I know what it is. However, sometimes you gotta choke a bitch. I feel like when a black woman is upset because someone's given her a valid reason to be upset, that's not angry, that's not argumentative, that's not aggressive. You pissed her off. Kandi don't go looking for nothing, but don't start no shit. Won't be no smell. Now, JoJo Dancer, yes, now that is violent, aggressive behavior. Kandi, you was just defending your business and a whole bunch of black people's jobs. Let's talk about that. Black people get to have all the emotions. We get to be angry if somebody pisses us off. If I get hit by a car, believe me, I'm gonna be pissed. If I burn toast, I'm not going to be the happiest of camper, but there's going to be a range of emotions between those two. I get them all. Kandi says she going to be over it by the time we get to the reunion, but she will be reading them down. She says I'm not holding back. She says I'm going to show up to the reunion with the one Tony. What them heifers showing up with? Sadly, Kandi didn't win the Tony this year, but she'll be up for one next year. Marlo can't even keep her sugar daddy. However, Kandi says Sanya don't realize how much she gonna miss that help without her family. She also said y'all keep looking at them little TV ratings, but they're killing it on Peacock because people just don't watch it as much in real time anymore. So since we're not getting those streaming numbers, we're only getting half the picture. All right, well now we're gonna get to Carlos King's dry little summation. So we're gonna start with Carlos King. So Carlos says the only new thing going on is charade with Martell, and he kinda right. The fact that Marlo has to reach back to 2020 and use this shooting for a storyline is beyond sad. Carlos said he blames production for pulling out this ancient plot line. Y'all going back and cracking open this old footage like it's champagne. If you ain't air it then, leave it alone now. Child, Carlos is telling Marlo's business. He said, oh, these are the longest relationships she's ever had. She ain't never had a man 11 years, ain't never had a friend 11 years, ain't never had a job 11 years. This show is her life. And then he gonna say, but that's no shade, that's no shade. That's incredibly shady. So Carlos said he liked seeing Kandi and Marlo's friendship, but then on Mad Day, Kandi brought up the slashing charges. And Carlos was surprised that they aired that because it was basically Kandi backpedaling and pussy popping as we saw. Oh, Marlo's so nice, Marlo's so sweet until she come after your business. And so if the show is so busy protecting Kandi, like Marlo Amos loves to say, then why are they showing her flip-flopping? He said Marlo shouldn't be jealous that Candy's getting her coin. He said you can't be mad at Kathy. Carlos said you can't be mad that Kandi as Bethany Frank hold her way to the top of the food chain. Unfair. You see, you would be fair if you weren't dropping lights on Elise Neal's head and stealing Candy's life story. I mean, you're out here swindling Mama Joyce out of information. You see, you're who Mama Joyce needs to be worried about. You're the one setting up the scheme to come to them with the bull. Not Todd, he's just a hard-working husband. I mean, a man that's 4'5" putting in the work of a 6'4" man impresses me. And so Carlos goes over all of Candy's seasons, and for the most part, he's right. Season 2, she definitely gave with her family and fiance. 3 and 4, she skated, but then she dated Ty, got married on the show, had restaurants, got pregnant. Like, she's given birth and a surrogacy and a marriage and a fiance that passed Marlo. I'm sorry, she's done more than promote her business. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Carlos. So they showed us those clips to let us know Marlo and Kandi did have a real friendship. And Carlos keeps saying Marlo is a foster child with abandonment issues. Okay, well at 56, she should be in therapy for those and know how to maintain another friendship with an adult without trying to throw their business up under the bus, especially when you know your friend is sensitive about their business. Based on what we've seen tonight, Carlos doesn't think Kandi did anything wrong, and neither do we. Marlo looks like she's reaching. Carlos said, now maybe if he had got shot at your restaurant, she would have sprung for the fume, but that's really what you wanted, Marlo, a free fume. Carlos has hundreds of people working for Kingdom Reign Entertainment. If any of his employees pass, he'd do the same thing Kandi did. He'll throw you a sorrows, prayers. Carlos has another point. Marlo, for this to be your A story, it's too dark. Even if you weren't trying to ruin Candy's business with it. We didn't focus that much on Greg Leake's passing. And he was beloved. Oh, Lord. Carlos says it feels like they're reaching since they can only get Martell for 2 episodes. Wink, wink. Oh, because Martell's under contract with you. Go on and put him on loan to Bravo. We know you're just begging for a connection again. I don't know why you just don't go back. He said since Courtney and Manetta aren't giving anything as friends of, they've decided to lean on Marlo Amos, but they could have cooked up something more than this. So basically, because the girls are all ganging up on Candy trying to get something out of her, we've got this crappy plot line. And Carlos is right. I don't want to talk about death for another episode. You know what? Carlos came up with another good point. I can't believe it. He's on it today. These are not funny, repeatable reads. Because Candy's defending herself over grief, these aren't moments that are going to turn into memes, and that's why we watch. Carlos thinks that Candy is angry at production for going this low and isn't so much mad at Marlo. And that's kind of true because these scenes are staged and they know what you're going to talk about. They know what you're going to bring up. And the fact that they went and dug up that old footage. Now Carlos is talking about what he wants to see. Well, why don't you do it on your shows? Then you could see it. They're completely ignoring the Drew and Ralph storyline. They're completely ignoring the Drew and Ralph storyline. But I think they're going to wait till the second half of the season. I think they're not re-editing to give us more of Drew and Ralph because they don't have that much of them because they didn't give anything all season. And so they raced to file as soon as filming was over so they could secure that check because what other income is coming into their house? Ain't nobody buy Ralph's book like he ain't adopt that baby. He thinks this plot line is low-hanging fruit. And as a low fruit, he'd know. He'd know. He says, I fly down and have meetings with my cast and your shows is still boring. Although I do have to get caught up on bill collecting. Carlos is at his wit's end. He's like, I got to make sure I'm in a good mood to watch this show. And I still feel crappy afterwards because you miss your girls. You miss your job. Well, who won? I'm going to give this point to Candy because she had more tea. But Carlos actually had a point. Normally he spends the episode just giving someone too many insincere compliments.